Welcome back to the True Walk podcast. Our special guest tonight is no other than Kevin Hunt. Me and Kevin, I've known Kevin a long time, been friends with Kevin a long time, and Kevin's got a story, a testimony that I think when you guys hear this and everybody hears it, this is where God's gonna step in and is gonna affect a lot of lives. The other podcasts we've had, I know they've affected lives because I've been talked to and had people come to me and basically, have told me how it affected them. But the one I think this is gonna happen right now is I think this is gonna open a lot of eyes and really let God speak through Kevin. And as we always start, last week when I done David Flowers, I was coming out of the woods. He was coming out of work, and I forgot to give him his hoodie on the podcast line. So I done it afterwards. He did get it, but I'm going to go ahead and give Kevin's his now, so I do not forget. So Kev, here's your.
Thank you. I didn't know I was going to come out here with a hoodie.
But that's
that is soft.
It's a good hoodie, and D-Brass made them. So let's give a shout out to D-Brass, man. Okay. Yeah, he made those, and
I happen to be closely associated to him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So
his mother is my girlfriend.
Yeah. So D-Brass made those, man. And so before we get started, we always do a prayer, and it doesn't have to be me doing the prayer, but what I'm going to do before we get started on this is I'm going to let Kevin Hunt start the prayer on this podcast, and we're going to let him go. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind, bow your heads. Gentlemen, if you're wearing a hat, please remove your hat. And here we go.
God, I just ask that you would join Michael and myself here this evening, and I pray that you speak through me. This is not about Kevin. I do believe that I've been a vessel that you've used, and a lot of us through failure. But I want people to hear today that God, your message, and that just because your life has been messed up by tragedy or by whatever, addiction, things didn't go the way you planned, there's still hope in a good life, and He has your back. And I pray that whatever I say today edifies you and you on. I pray for these things in Christ's name.
Amen. That was a great prayer, Kevin. And so we're going to start. So me and Kev, we duck hunt together. We deer hunted together. The boys was asking me, Kevin, I don't know if you remember me and you doing this. It's been so many years back, but they said, Dad, what about that Land Earl Vince owns around here? I said, you talking about the one with the big lake on it? He said, yeah. I said, you won't believe this, but me and Kevin Hunt frog gigged that lake. Put that boat in that water. And me and you went frog gigging, and we frog gigged all night, man, and had a time. And I'd never been there. We're driving through the woods, and all of a sudden, I'm like, holy cow, look at this lake, And so that was a story that I told, I think it was Gavin that I was telling him about that when we done that. Of course, me and you, when we were young, we used to work together, and that's just like you. So we hung by the side.
Just
way back when we worked together, and
for a great guy,
man, super guy, but anyway, Perch Patterson was that was fun. I think back on those times, that was a good time. But so Kevin runs a company now. He works for True Log, right?
Well, I have my own company.
Right.
I'm not a part of True Log in any way.
Okay.
I got hooked up with them guys through a friend of mine. He was a roofing contractor in Colorado Springs. I'd heard of the product about 6 months previous. And, a buddy of mine called me up into the mountains in Woodland Park, Colorado, and the lady, I had some hail damage. I did that for a long time, hail claims and whatnot. But anyway, the lady wanted True Log. She handled all that part of it. And, I come up and I changed out her siding, and I didn't know the people were True Log at that point. When I got done, they were pleased with my work. She was a tough customer. But they'd seen that I took pride in what I did. That's where it started. There was a lady there at True Log, a family member named Amber. that had reached out to me, and we built a relationship. And today I've gotten to be friends with the owners, Ryan, and his father, Ted, who actually invented stuff.
Wow.
And man, I can tell you, them people have been, and my friend Kelly Huggins, who's a True Log now, playing the role that Amber did back then, and what they know my story. They know it's something, and they put a lot of trust in me. And I can't tell you what they've done. And in I started my business when I was about a year.
Right.
It's a big gamble,
Right.
for somebody with my base.
Right.
But anyway, they've been a wonderful company to work with. And what they do is they know that I do real quality work. I take pride in what I do. We can talk that by first pass.
You've always been like that though, Kevin. I mean, I've worked with you. I've worked side to side with you, and you've always, that meant something to you.
It does.
It always has. And so while we're talking, if there's anybody out there that is looking to start a career or that may need something to do, maybe if they just want to learn how to do something, I'm pretty sure that if they reached out to me somehow or somehow got in touch with you, you travel, like right now you're doing a house in Leapers Ford. And he's a beautiful area. I think Kevin would be a great guy to learn from. And if somebody's out there that's looking for a job, reach out to us and let's get with Kevin, and I'm sure he would be more than willing to help somebody out there.
I can tell you that, back in them days when we were doing that, I didn't think doing siding was going to get me anywhere.
Right.
And I tried to hang my tool belt up for years. And here's what I really believe. I believe our life finds us eventually.
Yeah.
And I believe God directs that.
Yeah.
And it's going to end up where it's supposed to be.
You're exactly right.
And struggles and failures, man, they don't even thank God for them. Those have been the lesson teachers in my life.
Right.
I didn't learn nothing when things are good.
Right.
I get very comfortable and complacent when things are good. I learned through my failures.
Yeah.
I'm saying. But no, man, that was just a blessing. Man, I tell you, and my addiction, where I had to get to at the very end was that, I don't know if you know much about it here, but man, I got 9 years ago, it'll be 9 years my meth addiction ended this January.
9 years. Man, praise the Lord, dude. And I'm proud for you, man. And I'm glad to see the hunt because to me it's not Kevin. People call him Kevin J, Kevin, but it's always been a hunt to me. I've always called him Hunt, and the Hunt that I see now is the Hunt I seen then. And that's
Before life turned apart.
Before that, but I honestly think God uses people, and I know it sounds kind of weird, but I think God uses people in ways that, like right now, look at where you're at. You own a company. You're doing well with your company. You're going to church. You're being productive in society, and it's not in a bad way. And the story that I think people are going to hear right here, it's going to open some eyes to some people, Kevin, that may be going through the same thing that you were going through, that when they see this, I really feel like God's going to touch somebody out there today, and it's going to change their lives.
I hope so.
I fully believe that.
And that's why I've always been very open about my story. I got to be honest with you, I think my story has offended some people. I hate that. I've used Facebook. I would say that maybe 10% of my Facebook friends may be the real deal. Somebody that's really lost and don't know the way out.
Right.
But in order for me to reach them, I've had to do it through all 2,000 people.
Right.
And I think that people may think that I was criticizing them for their lifestyle, and that is not the case.
Right.
I'm only trying to reach that small few that's thinking about eating the bullet.
Right.
So to speak.
Right.
I mean, there's a million different ways.
I know what you're saying.
And I've tried to use my story. And man, I'm a flawed individual, brother. I mean, I'm still. I'm not no sitting up here on no cloud, nothing, no better than anybody, man. Because I know that for me, I could go back out tomorrow to that lifestyle.
Right.
And you know, anyway.
Well, it's funny. So we look back. So I'm gonna get started. We're gonna get started at the beginning of Kevin's story, but one of the main things, like, and everybody around Humphreys County, and not even Humphreys County, it could be anywhere close or whatever, but everybody knew John Hunt. The gas station that's on the corner, that's across the railroad tracks. I don't care what it's called. It's still Hunt's. It's still Hunt's. Everybody still calls it Hunt's. Where you at? Gavin called me the other day. I was getting ready to go to Florida. He said, "Dad, where you at?" I said, "I'm up there by Hunt's." And your dad, your dad meant a lot to a lot of people around here. And your dad was, he's professional, man. Like it was big time, and I was telling you before we started, I remember you giving me that hat, that Stratus hat, that your dad had those different hats, and I remember you giving it to me, and that meant a lot to me, man, because your dad was special.
He was a super guy.
Yeah,
he was a very humble. He was just old country boy. Man, he wears overalls. He loved to farm. He was a hard worker. Him and my mom both. I mean, they worked their fingers to the bone. And going back to where take pride, I mean, they instilled that in me.
Right.
That was one thing that I never lost, although I never lost that.
Right.
There's 2 or 3 ways to clean the house. One is shove everything in the closet. Or 2 is start from the beginning, make a bigger mess first, and then get it all back together.
Yeah.
And the latter is what my folks instilled in me.
Right.
Don't just shove stuff in the closet. No. But they, Dad was, he was a special, jolly,
great guy, man.
But I tell you, man, come Saturday, though, it's like, Clark Kent going into the phone booth.
I couldn't imagine. Dude. No, brother. Here, look here. That's why I got these right here, son. And that's tears of straight pride and joy.
Man,
yeah.
Yeah. I was blessed in that category. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah.
I'm thinking about, and as I cry, I think about certain moments, and I see him, he might have that hat up here, overalls on, one pant leg in a boot, but it comes Saturday morning, that blast off, that hat was pulled out,
ready to roll,
and there was a fierce determination.
Yeah.
That you see it in that. And I believe John was an athlete.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was a legendary man, and a lot of people fish these days don't understand how big John really was.
He was big, man.
He was revered. I went to Missionary Grove several years ago. They had a faith family fishing, and I took Daddy with me. There was 5 pros there. Some big guys. Shaw Reese, Mark Davis, who won the Bassmasters Classic. Bill McDonald, several of them, but man, 2 or 3 of them took their time to talk about my dad.
Wow.
And the role he played there.
Wow.
I mean, he was a legend to these guys. These guys are the legends.
Yeah.
And man, I'm so impressed. Yeah, man, I'll tell you through the days. I grew up back before the hunting and fishing industry was as big as it is.
Right.
I mean, everybody's doing it, but I mean, he was a trailblazer.
Right.
He and Junior Clapp fished meeting together, and to this day, I think Doug Hanna, who's the bass professor, claims the technique of fishing. But my dad, in 80-something, but my dad and Junior Clapp were doing that with a fly rod and reel back in the 70s,
Right.
early 70s.
Right. That's in Junior Clapp being TC's dad. Everybody wants TC and Dude's still fishing. You see Dude, he's fishing. I bet he'd fish tomorrow if he had a chance. So it runs deep. That whole thing, that I guess generation that the fishing, I think we fished a tournament together. We went together, but we were in the same tournament, and we'd fish. I don't know how many boats was in it, 100 boats, maybe 80 boats a year ago or something. And I think it was Kentucky Lake Open. and you hadn't fished, and I think you Pudge.
8 years.
What you finished fifth, sixth?
I finished 11th.
11th.
I broke a big smallmouth off about one that would have probably put me in second.
So man, it's just crazy. Like you think about stuff like that, and when I'm out there, I'm out there for the fun because I'm not a professional fisherman, but I can look around. Eric Kingsley, I can see, what they're doing. And Tristan McCormick let's shout out to that, dude.
Way to go, Tristan.
That is freaking awesome, man. If anybody sends this out to Tristan, or if he sees this, man, congratulations, dude. That's awesome.
He's a fine young man.
Yeah.
He's a role model for kids.
Yeah.
And man, he loves God.
Yes.
And I don't know Tristan, man, hardly.
No,
we've had one conversation.
Yeah.
I tried to help him in one little area of sponsorship, and later it worked out for a minute, but didn't later. But anyway, I talked to Tristan one day down at that tournament.
Yeah.
And man, what a fine young man.
Yeah. That was so. So I guess what we're trying to say is, just talking about John and Junior and just the family and how everybody's just they still kind of just do the same stuff, and the people that you expect to do good at it, do good at it. I mean, it's just the way it is, and it's fun to watch. I enjoy watching. I enjoy picking people's brains about it, because I try to learn. I mean, you've told me stuff. We was in the duck line last year, wasn't seeing anything flying. You was talking to me about the points, and I still remember, find the hump on the point that comes off where it drops, and then and the official said, just different little things that we were discussing that that I put back in my Rolodex. I always say nobody knows my Rolodex.
You better hold on to what I was telling you.
And I did. I mean, you still.
That's not something that fishermen know yet.
Yeah.
I was working on it when I left Tennessee 8-9 years ago.
Right.
It was something that I kept seeing a pattern, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Don't tell these other fishermen.
No, we can't tell them. But I do remember all that stuff that you. Like, some people may think, well, he ain't gonna remember, but I do, because I take stuff like that to heart. And so what we're going to do now is I always come up, and God lays the Bible verse on me for what it is. And every episode that we do, it's different. This is episode 5, by the way. And so my verse that came to me was Matthew 14:31. So it was when Peter was on the boat and Jesus was there, and Jesus walked, and Peter's like, if it's you, Jesus, have me come to you. He said, well, come on. And Peter stepped out of the boat, stepped on the water, and started walking on the water. But then Peter, this is where it all changes a little bit. Peter steps on there and the wind picks up, right? And he's freaking, he's panicking. And Jesus reaches his hand out and he grabs it. And he said, why are you so little faith? Why do you doubt? Why do you doubt me? I've got you. I'm here and I've got you. And and to me, that verse stuck out to me, Hunt, because it's like, hey, don't doubt me, because I'm here. And all you got to do is trust in me. And I've got your hand.
Man, that's a good scripture. I think about so many times in my walk with God, fear. Man, I came up with this analogy several years ago when I was in recovery, because I wanted people that hadn't been exposed to God or to recovery to understand what I was saying. So I come up with analogies, and I had one. God has this picture, beautiful picture, right here, and he's already got it. He's looking at it, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. The problem is, in my life, he can give me one pig at a time, and I'm making judgments about my whole life off one jig.
Right.
Okay, go put a jigsaw puzzle together, and man, out on Hawks Creek, I know you spent your time.
Yeah, a lot of time out there.
So where we're Turkey Creek on the other end of Hawks Creek, down by Clyde, we're Turkey Creek Road. Up that road, just about 100 yards, Helen Madden on the place.
Yes, wonderful lake.
They are, and across the road from her house, they had this little old barn set over the grassy lot over there, and there's big woods, and it's clean grass. And I hadn't been out there, I hadn't been by there in years.
I used to love that place, man.
And every spring, man, I love turkey hunt. Every spring, man, you look over there and the buttercups are blooming on a little knoll. There's the creek and that grassy, rusted out barn, and it's just beautiful.
Oh,
So that was my picture when I come up with this announcement.
wow.
And the problem is, see, he hands me a jig that's got a lightning bolt in it. We're talking about Peter walking across the water in his fear, but I start making judgments based off that one jig, and this can't be good. It's a lightning bolt. It's got to be destruction.
Right.
The barn's on fire. But the truth is, when it's all put together, it was just the April showers bringing May flowers, making the buttercups bloom. But I'm over here trying to judge every action God takes is bad or good, and that's not my business. My business is to walk in His will, try to be obedient, and sometimes I'm not. I want to make that clear. Sometimes I don't do so well with it. But, the fact is, I got to trust that He's got that picture put together.
Right.
But the fact is, I don't. And I'm trying to take one jig at a time. Oh, this can't be good. I'm starting to sink in the water when Jesus called me to Him. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so that's what it makes me think of that very scripture.
But that's a great analogy, because I do know the barn. I do know the
That's
lady.
great.
I do because
the buttercups.
yeah, because when there was and also the wood ducks would love the backside of that place.
Beaver Pond.
Oh yeah.
I had Smitty come in there one time. My cousin called me and said, man, I was coming across that bridge and about 40 or 50 went under the bridge.
Yeah.
So I didn't even go hunting because I knew I was going to be in trouble.
Right.
But that little beaver pond, you can't see unless you've been on that property.
You've got to be on the property.
Back in behind it.
Yep.
And
Yep.
what a beautiful place that was.
Beautiful place, and like I said, it was beautiful people. So Kevin, what we're going to do is we're going to go back, and we're going to let you start your story here as far as like the hunt story, like the one that we're going to that everybody's tuned in right now that's wanting to see, and so we're going to start in high school. Kevin Hunt was in high school. All the ladies love Kevin Hunt. All the ladies love Kevin Hunt. And then all the guys, they loved hanging out with Kevin. Kevin was a great athlete. Kevin was a stud, man. Kevin was the big guy on campus, man.
I don't know about all that.
Yeah, you were, Kevin. And so a lot of people, liked you, and a lot of people did that. So we're going to start in high school, and, and we're going to start there. Hunt, and then we're going to let you kind of go from high school and just kind of you can start your story there, and we can start working ourselves to this direction.
Michael, I just recently went through the toughest times of my life. I had blocked out several memories of my childhood. I had something happen. I'm not going to go into it. I'm over that Mount Everest in my life. All is forgiven, and it's time to get on down the road. I don't anyone on here think I'm a victim of any kind. And here's the real truth. I think all of us are victims of something.
Right.
But if you want to live a successful life, playing the role of one's not going to work out very well.
Amen.
I've never seen anything come to someone with a victim mentality.
Amen.
Even though for a couple of months, I wasn't. And I had a break, and I'm grateful for the best thing that happened to me here recently, because it got me back into church. You talked about my career and what I do. I got out on the road, separated from all the, I think, where two or one are gathered in my name, there I'll also be comes to mind.
Exactly.
And out on the road, locked in a box, which is my fifth wheel, not going to church and recovery. There's a lot of time for this thing to take back over, and that's not good for somebody like me. So I have a lot of bitterness in me. But anyway, I've got that dealt with. But the reason I said that is because what happened to me when I was a young kid, I have a whole lot of anger in my mind. And you didn't know it, you didn't see it as much. But I did some outlandish things. I've had Jamie Dyer, my friend Jamie Dyer, was telling me the other day, he said, man, I've known you for years, you're a great guy. I said, man, I was scared to run around. You wild, but you was wild. And I was lying. And what I didn't realize at that point is I was operating in fight or flight mode. And did till I'm probably 48 years old. Probably still do some, but I'm working on that. You know, I'm trying to show up as a better person today because I didn't know all this was going on.
Right.
Even in my recovery, and it's the soul searching I've done that led me to this. You know, they say an iceberg, you only see 10% of it. The remainder of the iceberg is under the water, it can't be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's one of those cases.
Right.
I don't believe that my life is about drug addiction. I believe it's about overcoming what I went through. Drug addiction was the result. Okay, it wasn't. Everybody looks at my life like it was destroyed by drug addiction. Drug addiction was my solution, and it worked for a little while. But there came a time when consequences started to roll in. You know, they kept getting worse and worse. But anyway, I made some strong declarations at 14-year-old, and I went away with my middle finger in the air to all people in authority. I started drinking, using drugs. I learned that if I had a bag of weed, then I had a lot of friends, and I wanted some friends. And then back then, I didn't really care if they was fake or not. I was just trying to be, you know, I was trying to make my place in the earth, and I was really confused kid, man. And anyway, there's a lot of people that's in my life. There's a lot of people probably watching this that suffered, especially in my late teens and 20s, up through my 20s. Man, I was a wounded man. And I was bleeding on other people that didn't cut it, and I didn't know it. You know, I didn't know it. I couldn't have a meaningful relationship. I mean, I was terrible in some relationships. I was terrible. You know, things that I can't change. They're very hurtful to me. But anyway, you know, at that age in high school, everybody was doing it. So I didn't think there was anything out of the ordinary going on. And when I got to my 18th birthday, I remember it was a week after I graduated. And the first week I went to a club in Nashville, Tennessee called Dad's Place. And that was the first time I tried cocaine.
At 18.
At 18. And I got news for you. Back in them days, you know, today there's a crossroads for kids to meet. Man, it's getting down there to 9, 10 years old. But back in them days, that wasn't the case.
Right.
So anyway, that didn't go well. I kind of like flying like that. I mean, I never had a pill problem. Not to say that I've never done it, but I never was on opiates. My drug of choice was speed because I was low keyed already and I needed something. You know, I didn't need to put me to sleep. I needed something to wake me up.
Right.
But anyway, so I got started, you know, making cocaine. By 22, it accidentally become a major dealer. And man, you know, here's what I do. Regardless of what it was that I was doing, I know that I hurt a lot of people at the time. I've led people down the wrong road. I introduced people to heavy drugs, you know, run loose, regardless whether I had a girlfriend or not. You know, I had some girl tell me the other day, she, man, I thought you were so cute, but man, you're just wow. I stayed a lot scared of it. I said, well, good for you. But some didn't. And man, I tore through some of their lives like a tornado. Anything in the world to change that. Unfortunately, most of them still speak to me. And that just shows what kind of individuals they were. But, you know, man, it got pretty dark. At 37, I went to a place, I think it was like 2000. I went to a place called Teen Challenge. And I'll give a little backstory on that. Something I've never told. I was sober almost a year, and in 2004, just like a little hard.
I'm here for you, and everybody else is here for you too.
I'm not going to say the lady's name because I think a little bit cherish her. But I was engaged to be married. So almost a year. I had a really good job in Nashville, working for Dave's Fishing Boat, selling pipe bags and fittings. And we lived in Nashville, engaged, and we got pregnant. Life was going great. Forgive me. We got pregnant, and 6 months into the pregnancy, we lost a kid. Anyway, man, I want a kid so bad. I went on a pretty hard binge. It didn't last long. Didn't have to last long. It was 30. About a 2 month binge. I think I ended up going through about $35,000. Well, I did, yeah, I mean, serious. And I was really trying to kill myself. I just didn't have the guts to pull the trigger. And I heard somebody say one time, I think it's the truth. So you got to have guts to be in this world. Okay. But anyway, I landed in, you're going to hear this thing more than one time tonight. Carrie back. Good thing. We went through a lot of hard days together. And Carrie got me in a place in Memphis, Teen Challenge. And let me tell you, that place was brutal. 99% of the people there, court order there, facing serious prison time. And up there, I'm not on person there. They used to ask me all the time, you stay, I want to die. And I really don't want this to be the end of my life. And I graduated from there. And, came back, and anyway, I'll tell you a little bit of story here in the middle of it. If you feel like God can't use you because of what you've been through, I'm going to tell us another story that's never been heard in public. And I want to edify God. This is not about me. This is not about anybody that is involved in the story. It was a movement by God. It involved a lot of people, and unfortunately, I think people are even involved, a lot of them don't know the truth. And I come out of Teen Challenge, and man, I felt like God. And both different problems there. You know, I'm an educator, but not like that. You know, but he showed me something. And through my failures, and what have I been on a treatment center? I've been to. I started in, I remember the night the Gulf War started, that was 91. I started my second treatment center. I think the first one I went to was in 89. And man, there's been 15 or 16 years. But anyway, when I came out, this program, man, was rough. And Carrie's got a lot of people from Arthur County and Big County. But they wake you up, and I think you can classify it as a confrontation. It was for the ones that you know. It was your last, and they would wake you up at 5:30 in the morning and beat you with the Bible and beg you to step out of line. And anyway, when I got closer to getting out, you know, their release program was pretty much here go to church, good luck. And that's not probably going to work out very good for me. So I had enough sense about me that I asked a guy by the name of Danny Davis. A lot of you were local know that. Danny, Sheriff Chris' brother. I asked him to be my accountability partner to keep me honest. But man, nobody can shut the guy by the drug. Anyway, he did. And as I was working with Danny there over time, I shared with Danny an idea that God put in, and it was about a 12-step program. And but it had a twist to it. See, Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step recovery programs, they're not trying to, I believe God's the answer, but they're not trying to bring you to God. They're trying to help you deal with whatever the issue is in your life. Those 12 steps are. But the way it's written in one of the major programs is a God of your own understanding or a power greater than yourself. Because they're not trying to deliver you to Christ himself. And the reason they did that is so people from all walks of life can get sober, whether you're atheist, agnostic, Muslim, Buddhist, and it's genius. You know, and don't for a minute think, I think Billy Graham was asked 25 years ago, what do you see as the biggest movement for Christ in the 21st century? And he said, without Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, it's baby steps. So they get in there, most of them don't want nothing to do with God because it hurts so bad. How could God allow this to happen to me? And, you know, today I believe that it was God's plan for me to be sitting right here in this chair. Exactly like, oh, that's what I believe today.
And it is God's plan.
I believe it was. I believe that everything I went through had a purpose.
You're exactly right.
Now you could look at all those 12 centers that 15 centers that I went through as failure. But let me tell you the rest of the story here. And, anyway, I shared my idea with Danny. And, you know, Danny, Jeremy Bell, you know, Jeremy had a pretty rough story.
Right.
And it had inspired Josh. Right, Shannon. I'd actually had some time with Jeremy myself in recovery or trying to get to that side. Right, there's some withdrawals. I'd sit with him. But anyway, I think Jeremy's story and Josh, I believe, had a movement of God. I think God spoke to him. I mean, I really believe this happened. He wanted to start some way to help drug addicts in Orange County. Man, we had a terrible problem here. Right. And so anyway, I shared my idea with Danny. Danny was an elder at Friendship Church back then. About 2 months after I shared my idea with him, he asked me, he said, man, hey, man, Pastor Josh won't help addicts. County, man, why don't you? We're going to have a little meeting tonight to discuss possible things that we can do. Me and Dan, Jeremy Bell, and a girl by the name of Robin McCormick met up there. What's now the coffee shop. It was 103, 104 back then. We sit down with a blank piece of paper and we come up with what the whole thing is. We discussed that night whether it was going to be inpatient or outpatient. I remember Danny had hope scribbled on, and what he had under that, the acronym was helping others preserve eternity. And we didn't know right then what was going to be. And man, I forced, because I really felt strong that God had laid this on me, an idea for a program. And man, I got to be honest with you, my drug addiction wasn't over yet. And after I proposed this idea of a plan, I went back out. I mean, I ain't responsible for all the footwork, people like Danny Davis and Harold Wilkie and Rick Owen and Josh Hannon. But this idea was through my failures in all the treatment centers and the way that what I was experiencing. Because here's what I grew up in the church, and man, going to a secular recovery program almost felt like I was cheating on God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Today I don't feel that way, right? Because I believe it's all God, right? But and the main reason was because of the scripture anyone that comes to the Father comes to the Son. Now I'm going to paraphrase a lot.
No, that's fine.
But anyway, and what that idea was, you'll know it today, and it had done that. Had Celebrate Recovery is a 12-step Jesus Christ specific program instead of the God of your own understanding.
Right.
But we didn't know that Celebrate Recovery. Celebrate Recovery started in Saddleback Church in 1991. Pastor Rick Warren, I think it was. And, but see, Celebrate Recovery didn't leave California. It was adopted by the California, I think, state penitentiaries, and then maybe New Mexico state penitentiaries in 2004. But this is 2005, the end of it. And I think it had made it to like Blount County, Tennessee judicial system. But we didn't know.
Right.
We didn't know about Celebrate Recovery.
Right.
And, I brought that idea to the table. My family remembers it very clearly way before we started discussing Hope Center. And, Danny Davis was the middleman that brought Josh's idea. And what is that but God right there? To put two God movements together to bring out, and then you got Jeremy Bell's story was a big inspiration to what the Hope Center is to help you, And so what the Hope Center is today is exactly what God showed me He wanted in 2000.
All those years back, so 20 years ago.
20 years ago, when the Hope Center ministry started in 2007. So our meeting, first one, was probably going to be 2006, because it was a year. What happened then, Danny and I was riding down the road one day, and of course, me inside in and out of treatment centers, there was people that I had reverence for that helped me along my path. And I told Danny, there's a guy that lives right down here in Henry Branch, and I think it's who you need to run. And his name is Harold Wilson.
Right.
Now, Harold since had his trouble, but he's back in line now. I think he's running the City Senate. I wish Harold the best. But, Harold always had an open door for me when I came back in. He and Tina Wilkie were wonderful people, and they were 15 years sober back then. And I believe that to this day, he was the right man for the job. And then he didn't really want nothing to do with it. And he invited Rick Owen up, and Rick Owen got involved. And a month later, Harold got back involved. Man, I'm back out of this time. And then I came back, and Danny took over the construction side of the Hope Center. Man, I went to work building the Hope Center when I got back into the company. I was the first house manager there. Some disobedience on my part, why I didn't stay that way. I passed out some cigarettes. We wasn't going to smoking up there, and I did because I was scared. The first 6 guys were going to leave. I had right intentions, but I was still disobedient to God. Definitely been called.
Right.
But anyway, forgive me fidgeting here.
No. This is your story, buddy. You do it how you want to do it.
But anyway, today, if I look at it, later, what happened after that was Harold and Jeremy, Mike Garr, I think, maybe Chris Crispin, I don't remember. A bunch of them went, especially people with secular recovery experience, because we're building something new.
Right.
There is no, you're bringing an idea.
It's all
what
new.
Hope Center Ministries is today.
Right. It's all new.
So they took that, what we talked about that night in that meeting, and they went to a cabin up in McKeown. I think the guy with Jerry Jones used to own Dixon Tire, and man, they were some guys that was real strong recovery. And that secular program that went up there, and man, they beat it down and come out. What they ended up coming out with was a condensed version of 12 steps called the 8 Truths. And the Hope Center launched with those 8 truths. Now, it wasn't too long later down the road that they did hear about Celebrate Recovery, and they adopted Celebrate Recovery because it was already written.
Right.
But man, we started Hope Center, there was no such thing as Celebrate Recovery. And I think that, in a very small way, I believe that God used not only me, but Danny, and I know he used Josh, I know he used Jeremy. The girl's name was Robin. I don't know where Robin's at now. If you see this, I hope you're doing what Robin McCormick was her name.
It sounds like to me you've named off a lot of names that was involved in this thing from the beginning. And it was so I think God used a lot of people there.
A lot of people.
Yeah. And still using them.
I mean, I hear a lot of criticism of the whole sector. I also heard the criticism we need to do something for drug addicts in Knox County. And then they present a solution, and then we criticize. Here's what I want to know. The line over here of criticism is a lot more than the line. There's a lot more people in this line than the ones telling people. The critical lines got a lot of people. Right. People that offer encouragement's got, straight down the line. There's some people that do, and there's some people that complain. I'm sure it don't run perfectly. It's not exactly one of the things, and I talked to Jeremy today, we talked about some of the things that we weren't, we wanted it to be for people that wanted it. And they do court orders. We wanted it to be free. They have to work through, and these are all adjustments that had to be made by the Hope Center and Compassion people to make these things work. I mean, it costs a lot of money to treat people. I know some of the treatment centers I went to cost about $40,000 for 28 days. I think they charge you about $700 for a year. So,
right,
something's got to pay you for your stay. Right, it's expensive.
Right, yeah.
So I try to stay out of being critical of anybody doing something to try to help.
It's trying to benefit somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's got flaws. Everything's got flaws.
I've learned a long time ago, Kevin, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you do. You're always going to have someone that's going to talk about it. But I heard something the other day, and it made a lot of sense to me because it is true as it can get. They were saying this, there's never going to be a musician that's going to down a person that's trying to be a musician. There's never going to be an athlete that's going to down another person trying to be an athlete.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So what it is, it's the ones that are like dealing with it and finding it. They know what you got to go through, and they know they're there pushing you on and like, hey man, I'm on your side. It's the ones that stand back and think they know how these things are going to be working, are the ones that are always going to be critical.
Absolutely.
But that's the ones that you never ask the information about or ask anything about because they don't know.
Right.
So I learned that.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I learned that.
Said,
yeah.
Man, God's got a plan. It's going to go through.
Yes.
It don't matter how you feel about it.
You're exactly right.
Man, here, this last, man, my story's long, so forgive me about it. It's long.
Right.
I was out 37 years, stuck in drug addiction. Now, there was periods of sobriety in there. But man, I still hadn't dealt with that one main hurt. And I kept going back, man, I thought you were going to come out with, I think it's what Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom. Is that right? Let's paraphrase it.
Let's do this. Let's pull the Bible out and we'll look on it real quick. And you said Matthew
6:33.
Let's look at it. Let's see.
Man, I don't know. There's times when I put a whole lot into my spiritual walk, and sometimes I'm spiritually lazy. And I hate to admit that, but it's true. I'm doing the best I literally can.
John, I'm going to tell you, man, I think you're doing outstanding. I really do.
I've been blessed. I've been blessed immensely. And I'm sure that there's,
John, so you said Matthew 6:33.
That's what it's
all right. And you said, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. So it comes straight to you, huh? And I'm going to tell you something. You say that about yourself, but you just spoke this verse and you didn't look at anything. So God's with you, man. He's on your side. And it says it right here because it's also written in red.
It is written in red.
It is written in red, so we know that Jesus spoke these words.
Here's something that I can say to that verse, man. People want to know what took me so long. Why was there so many treatment centers? These recovery programs ain't about alcohol or drugs. They're only mentioned in the very first step of any 12-step program. Here's what it's really telling you. Brother, you're screwed. There's nothing you can do. But, and the second part of the first step of these 12 steps, and we admitted the first is whatever the problem is. We admitted we're powerless over whether it's gambling, sex, narcotics, drinking, whatever it is. I think these 12 steps are magical for anybody, regardless what it is. But it's only the first half, the first step that said we admitted we were powerless over, and then it's hyphen, and that our lives have become unmanageable. See, I thought for years that my life had become unmanageable, and I thought it was unmanageable because of drugs and alcohol. Today, I see it over different. My life was unmanageable for one reason only, and still is, because I tried to live my life in the family of God. We wasn't meant to. We got separated from God in the garden with our disobedience. And from that time, we had to be reconciled with God. And then back in them days, they used the lamb to sacrifice and Passover and whatnot. Then Jesus came along and God gave his son for us, for our sin, and to be reconciled back with him. Because we were designed to walk with God.
How frustrating. So since you said that, and I'm going to speak on this because it runs through my head. Do you think about this? How frustrated, how upset did God have to be for him to send his only begotten son to this earth that was perfect, to only have him come, to be tortured, to be brutally beaten,
Worst of man.
to be chastised, to be mocked, to be deeply humiliated, knowing that this was going to happen to him. Jesus, knowing that it was going to happen to him,
Knew
it. How upset did he have to be? But how much did he care about us to do this? It's unimaginable. I cannot imagine giving either one of my sons up to do that. So that's the part to me when I think about that, and I'm glad you said that, is we were meant to be with him up until
our
disobedience. And so we're and speaking that, we're
it was
all
her fault, by the way.
but we're all born in it.
We are born.
We cannot escape.
Sin.
We
We're
cannot-
born separate from God.
We cannot escape it.
And I think that's the significant part of the Bible people don't understand. We're born separated from it. But we wasn't meant to be.
Right.
We're meant to walk in that garden with him.
Right.
And the thing about your life, about my struggles, I believe today are to get me back. My biggest problem in my life is I was adamant about driving the bus, regardless whether I knew I was going to crash or not. At least I knew where I was going.
Right.
Even if it wasn't it.
Right.
Because I didn't know where that dude, and there's been times in my life where I looked at him like a human being, and, I've been through a lot of things in my life. Been let down in society, let myself down as well. And I look at him as that way too. He's going, but man, here's what I do. I know that I can't do nothing to make God love me any less. And I can't do nothing to make him love me anymore either. He just loves me. The rest of that is my mind telling me, But anyway, I think about that verse and all the struggles I had seeking first. And I did things a little different, man. I'd like to tell you when I got to Colorado Springs 9 years ago that wasn't my first choice. Michael was 48 years old. I'm over here fidgeting with this tissue instead of using the black lines, but there's a lot. A lot. Uh, but at 48, I come to the end of myself on the hill right above the nation's campground. We don't campground up there too. And, I went up there to take my life. And, I've won too many times in my life. God, it's good. I still hold myself, but I'm a kid, my brother. And then I had the intention to blow my brain out. Excuse me for saying that. I shouldn't have said it that way.
It's the true walk.
It is the truth. It's the truth.
It's a true walk. And that's,
I was 48 years old. I didn't have a pot to pee in or a window to throw it out of. I think the old saying. I was a disappointment. But I felt like I let my family down. I know that there was times they had to be embarrassed. My folks, man, the older one was the best one. That family had done a lot for me. I went up there with every intention of taking my life. Because I'm tired of trying. I've been 16 treatment centers. And I remember I had a 12-day shot. I had my finger just went into the treatment guard. My finger just touched cold steel. Phone rang. Phone rang. At that moment, not before, not after. Says you must be born again to see the kingdom of God. There's more than one birth in your life. But in order for that second one to happen, first thing that's going to happen is you got to die. Spiritually. No, there's a lot of my old behaviors that I've had to work through and all that. But the Kevin Hunt, that a lot of people know, I don't really refer to myself as third party. But, it was at times like that. What you described earlier. A lot of people knew my story, watched the spiraling tornado of my destruction. A lot of people did. And everybody was. Because my dad's had gotten famous at that point. When he won that big tournament in '86, I was playing quarterback for Wade. I was a junior when he won the big tournament. And I'm driving, nice new truck he drove, the one in that tournament, the school, the problems. Some people were watching everything, but they watched the fall. And they watched the attempted recoveries and all the but man, I was done. 48, I didn't have the heart to let him try. I beat. And the phone rang, it's Kerry Vine. You heard me mention Kerry Vine earlier.
I think Kerry Vine is an angel. Do you have?
Man, I've known Kerry Vine when he wasn't an angel.
Well, I mean,
I love it, brother.
But you know what I'm saying. But you know what I'm saying. Yeah, like
Yeah, absolutely. And he called. I don't know that I would have answered for anybody else at that moment. Man, I didn't. Talked out of it. But anyway, wow, it was a lot. Wow. But anyway, been a lot.
But you're here, brother.
He said, man, don't do it. He said, give it one more chance. And I'm going to tell you, I was at a place of bitterness. and no hope, you know. And he said, well, won't you go down here to so and so? My friend Bo Botts, the guy that originally got me to Colorado the first time. I've been to Colorado 4 times. And Bo said, you go over here to Savannah, Georgia. Go down here to Counts or Savannah, Tennessee, and go to a team town. I ain't going back to town. I think it might be beneficial for some people, but it hurt me because I done been through some things. But that was the last thing I need to be whipped at that point. I need some love. Right. You're not going to whip me. And I'm going to say this. If you want me to follow Christ, you're going to make it somewhat appealing. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to whip me in this condition. Right. Because I'm going to prove through my record of life that I'll stick my middle finger in the air and walk. Right. With a blatant disrespect for the Lord. Right. You're going to have to make, you know, I'm a lot more in the New Testament of grace and mercy than I am the Old Testament of Ten Commandments, because I'm going to be honest with you. And I don't want you to think about my comment here that I've murdered anyone, but I broke all 10 commandments in the roundabout way. Right. I've been to demise of people and it's ended up killing them. I'm not going to go into specifics there. I've had people die in my arms in addiction. I mean, but I broke all 10. And I'm sitting here right now with the favor of God. I want you to understand that you ain't done nothing nowhere tonight. Anybody that's out there living struggling, there's room for you in the kingdom of God. It don't matter if you go the secular way or the church way. I believe that you're going to get where you're supposed to get to anyway. Here I said, on a roundabout road. I mean, you know, this, wow, I'm sitting there right now. But he said, man, go here. I was like, man, I'm not going to another treatment center. What's the magic number? 16, is it 17, is it 18, is it 24? Don't, right? I'm going to blow my brains out. And he said, man, just one more time. Just one. And somehow or another, I walked up that hill that day. And there was things going on in my life I can't talk about. And my uncle Cecil and his wonderful wife, Linda Garber, used to be in the hut, picked me up down at his place there. My hut's outdoors where he keeps his equipment. They took me to their house and nursed me back to health for about 7 days. And I left Tennessee. I'd met a man in Colorado that had reached, you know, even though I didn't stay sober, and I'd met someone that reached me with a different take on things, and he presented it to me, something that I could get. What a wonderful guy. He saved my life. But I had to go out there, and his message, although it was a secular program, was still seek me first. And he said, Kevin, you can take a job, but I want you this meeting on this day at this time. I want you to get one for all 7. And some of it would be early in the evening. Man, I ain't gonna be able. If you find a job, you tell them. And if you can't be at that meeting, you quit and find you another job. And I'm thinking, man, this ain't a good plan. I got to pay my bill. You know, I've got a halfway house I'm paying rent to for a buddy of mine, and all my friends in Colorado that helped me get back in out there. Man, I'm grateful for you guys. He said, you put this first. You don't, you know, a lot of people, and I see this all the time, and I'm guilty of it myself. I've been there, automatically quit smoking, and I'm going to the gym, working out, get me a good job, and that's exactly backwards. My job is to seek God. He takes care of the rest.
Amen, brother. I mean, I had that discussion today.
And what I found in my own experience is the more I focus on Kevin and his problems, the more my life falls apart. The more I focus on God and trying to help others, the more it comes together. My problems disappear
Mhm.
when I'm trying to help others. Now, that don't keep me from trying it the other way,
Right,
because I'm hard-headed.
right.
And that's scripture. But anyway, man, I went in there, and for the first time in my life, I'd gotten completely honest. I'd always held a little back in these confessions. Oh man, some of it's quite embarrassing. I don't want you to know what I said. But I took a chance on this guy, and I laid it all out there. Because I think secrets keep you secrets. And it don't say that I need to confess my sins to the world. It says confess your sins one to another. But in doing so, you need to find somebody that can keep a secret.
Right,
Because they can destroy you
right,
worse, if they did keep one.
right.
There's people that come into recovery, man, and when they're doing this, man, I mean, it could lead you to prison. There's things that people have done, Fortunately, I didn't have none of them, but I mean, I've got my share.
Right,
But they could land you in prison if they told the truth.
right.
You got to be careful of who you choose and your spiritual walk to be by your side. I think that's very important. You need to find somebody that's well grounded in you. And two, a lot of people come into recovery and they want to go to meetings, but they don't really want to do those steps. Those steps are kind of, what was that book we had? Y'all all used when we were reading a book or watching a show in high school, they had the little cheap book, the little yellow books.
Oh, yeah.
Summary, more or less, of what it was.
Yeah.
And the cheat sheet.
Right.
We read it, and like we read the whole book.
Right.
I lost my train of thought. But, anyway, man, it's, I got in there and I did what that man told me to, even if I thought it made sense.
So basically, no shortcuts is what you're getting at.
Even if he had told me to go do a handstand out in the middle of the road, naked, I would have done it.
Okay, but
Because I done tried my best. I mean, I made a mess in my life.
right,
I'd give it my best shot. 0 and below 0 is what I actually got. But I got honest. I didn't miss those things until, later when this true long deal come and I started traveling. It kind of got me away, and I thought that was, and it has been a big blessing from God. He's helped me in my life, but there's parts of it that haven't been for me. I'm isolated. I'm all over. I've been in places where northern Colorado, where I had to drive 55 minutes on dirt roads just to the nearest place they would drop a FedEx package. We're talking remote.
out there,
Remote.
yonder.
I've stayed in cabin at Adolph Tours itself and stayed in 100 years ago. But there wasn't no power.
Right.
It was still like Adolph stayed in back in 1908 or 13 or whatever it was. But, this thing took me a lot of places. God's took me a lot of places. Go ahead.
So
We've covered a lot.
we were talking earlier, and my favorite movie of all time. You used to talk about God's taking you a lot of places, but my favorite movie of all time is Jeremiah Johnson. Of course, Jeremiah Johnson was portrayed by Robert Redford, and you was talking about God's taking you a lot of places. Well, let Kevin take you this story. I mean, we'll lift it up a little bit on this back side here.
Yeah. So Robert Redford, about 7 years ago, and it's a critically acclaimed movie. It's Our Souls at Night. It's Robert Redford and Jane Fonda. And the cool thing was, one of the halfway houses I went to, and a couple of my dear friends, Santa and Jan, love you guys. I know that you're probably going to see this. My friend that I went, and the first guy I met in Colorado was the mall Santa Claus. In Colorado Springs, man, this dude, I mean, everybody loves Santa Claus. And he owns some halfway houses. You know, he's had some struggle in life. They meet them, and they started, and his wife started the same. I ran one or two of them over the years. But they had come to Colorado Springs to film this movie, and they shot it right across the street from his house. With Robert Redford's house, and then three houses down the corner was a big mansion, and it was Jack Fonda's house. So during the movie, I got eased to the back at it. They couldn't keep me from watching it because it was his house.
Right.
And the camera crews are set up on the front porch, and we're over there talking to Redford's double all day long. He was one of the producers. You know, I got to be front and center as they filmed this movie. There wasn't nothing nobody could do. Police couldn't keep me out, nothing like that. But so I capitalized on that one over a lot. And I went up in there and said, "What's going on?" I'm working too, but I mean, if I had free time, I was curious.
Right.
But later down the road, I did a casting call. And anyway, they selected. And I got to go to, what was the name of that place? It's very swanky up in Denver. It was an old fitness place. Well, I can't think of the Brown Palace, the Browns Palace, and ballroom, I believe it was. And I got to be on the set, which I had just a little part. I didn't have a speaking part. In fact, nobody did in the scenes I was in. I was having a team in one scene, and I was eating dinner off the dance floor in the ballroom while he and Fonda were dancing on their night out. And but I mean, my acting career cost me about $160. Some people make a good living, but the experience was being on the movie set with probably the greatest actor of our time for 8 hours. I mean, I was meeting you from dude all day.
It's amazing.
And you know, and man, that was, and I got to do a lot of good things like that, man, over the years. I remember riding through Bell Mead in a 7 Series 84, 80 so model Mercedes with a man by the name of Dean Dillon.
Dean Dillon.
Wrote Tennessee Whiskey.
George Strait.
Wrote almost everything for George Strait.
Yeah. Yeah. How cool is that, man?
And I brought a guy here at one time. If you watch Landman.
Oh, yeah.
The sheriff walked. I brought him away.
You know what I remember, I think, Kevin, that going on that.
And one of the coolest things I've seen now, Mark had his own struggles, and there's some people in the Dixon area that's got a few hard feelings toward him. He'd done something to a friend of ours we didn't care for, but anyway, I think Mark's got his life together now.
Yeah.
And I can tell he looks a lot healthier now. He was a country music star for a while, Mark Collins. And I brought him down here. I remember several people, Doug Bradley and Larry, I took him to meet. Hippie Hooper, Big Daddy met him down at the Elks Lodge. We went fishing. We wasn't really fishing. We wasn't.
Right.
It was a moonshine pair. We come down here for about 8 days and tore this town up like I did all my life. Anyway, though, one of the good things, I've got a really good musician buddy, my singer-songwriter, Tim Daly up in Dixon. He lived in Nashville at this time, and Colin lived there. And anyway, we hit it off. Tim was playing a gig up in Dixon, and playing a pool party. And I can't remember if it's Labor Day or Memorial Day. But he was playing a pool party with some people up in Dixon. And me and Mark showed up playing. And you know, everybody's tripping out. So Mark Colley, the country star, just walked into their little party.
Right.
They wanted to hear him play. I got news for you. I'm more of a Tim Davis fan than I ever was. Tim was just better, but he didn't make a big time. But Mark was a star, so everybody wanted to hear him. We got to get talking. Now, as he was playing, I kept noticing these kids coming to backfish doors. I'm like, what's going on? What? I've seen two come out there and just took off. What's going on with that? He said, oh, they're there watching the movie. And Mark said, yeah, he stopped playing. He said, what are they watching? He said, they're watching a movie called The Punisher. You ever seen The Punisher? Mark played a famous role in it where he was still very heavy to do with the hitman. Remember that? I walked into the diner. Anyway, he said, oh, you get everybody in the house. I want you to get the DVD player to Scene 10. And I want you to get everybody in there and I want you to play Scene 10. And when it's done, stop it. It just, and I want you to bring a box to it and sit in front of the television. And all these kids in there, and I don't know who liked it the most, adults or what. But we played that scene, and you got right in front of the TV in there in the living room and reenacted to a T.
Wow.
That scene with that guitar case laying right there. It's got Harry Heck inside of it. You know, I think he was the one who made it famous. You done brought a knife to a gunfight statement in the movie.
Right.
One said it. And, but we got, and that was, you know, watching them kids get to see it's in their living room, right? Sitting there watching, what the world, you know? And that was one of the cool things I got to see. You know, from my dad's fishing career, man, I was blessed to be around a lot of people fishing. You know, if there was a path that I think my life would have took had it not been for drug addiction, I believe, man, I can't help but think about my friend Christian Pally out there. So, he's doing what I want him to do. And I had the connections back in them days to do it to my drug addiction. And people get away from it. You know, I was looking not long ago at Legends of the Outdoors show, a website. I think it's Legends of the Outdoors. And, man, about 25 and dude staying in my back bedroom when I was a kid before they were Legends.
That's great.
Got Harold Knight, Earl Bentz, and Charlie Egan. Hey, Charlie, hope you're well. He was big time. He won 3 Bassmasters. I know three consecutive Bassmaster events in a row. Fished several Bassmaster classes. He lived out here off Clyde right now. People don't understand the deep roots of the hunting and fishing industry that come from way to Tennessee.
It's amazing.
I remember growing up, man, you know, they got that little T flag, that black flag they wave. You know, that was invented right down here at Fuller's Hill.
Right.
Harold Knight got out on the pit with a black t-shirt, started waving. As he got closer, he got down in the pit, started waving. And now they got every blind in America has a T flag if you do something. And that started right down there at Fuller's Hill, there at Fuller, place. That and but they don't know the people, the amount of legends, man, that we didn't understand. And today it's a lot of other people. You know, you got some country songwriters here, different people that bring different people. I'm not going into that.
All those guys.
All those guys. I mean, you never know from one day to the next who's sitting in those camps.
Right.
Over the years, I mean, I remember, you know, Earl Benson. Of course, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, my dad, I remember one time, Earl, he had a lot of famous people with him come hunt out here, and he would pull up the front door. Because who knew? You know,
Right.
there. I remember one time, Dad said he come in the back door to the kitchen, come in there and get some things. He said, John, come out here, don't you meet somebody? Daddy went out the back door and then go all the way around the suburban and said, man, I'm down there looking up there, Dale Earnhardt sitting there.
Oh my God.
I remember Teresa White, Teresa Cable, passed away recently. She still had a card where you filled it out, you know,
It's amazing, man.
Dale Earnhardt. different people. But man, it was cool. But man, I tell you, drug addiction took on. And any fond memories I had, I mean, pretty much closed the door on life. But I'm gonna tell you, what is it? God will restore what the locusts be. Paraphrase. And he has.
Right.
And he done it quickly.
Right. Real fast.
I mean, I'm gonna tell you where I got to, Michael, on that empty road, and I had to get to the point where I was willing, with my ego, vanity, and pride, and all the issues that humans suffer with, that I was willing when I got sober to make my life about just that. I didn't care if I could work it. I was willing. Right. As long as sober was enough at that point.
Right.
He's given me so much more.
Right.
I've had a hand, and I've had a hand helping some people get their life together. And ain't nothing more magical than that. So he's let me experience a few things. That's where I'm on the good side. It wasn't all bad. And today, I posted something a while ago. Pudge, Herndon, and Carl Carter chimed in. And all three of us opinion that we don't regret what we've been through.
Right.
I can see today where all that struggle was for.
Yeah.
Who are you going to call if you're thinking about taking your life? You're going to call somebody that never been through nothing? Or you going to call somebody that knows?
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Yeah, I mean, that's
if you're a parent, you've got a kid struggling. And I can't tell you, although I faced a little criticism for, people think I was condemning them for partying. I don't. I'm out. I go see Tracy's son's band, see them, go see them in bars all the time. Actually, I went last night and saw them play at Dixon, and I loved them. And now, if you were to pull out a bag of pie, I'm getting away from it.
Right.
If you can't handle your alcohol, I'm getting away from it. But other than that, no. I'm not going to judge God.
Right.
My message is strictly meant for those that lost and can't find a way out. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to judge, and I ain't got room to judge anybody.
So, Kevin, as we get ready to close this episode, if you had to say one thing out there to them, like that would maybe help someone, just basically a short phrase, after everything that you've been through and everything that you've seen, and I know that you've told this story, but what's something that you could tell somebody out there that may benefit them?
It's back to that scripture, seek ye first.
Okay.
And like I said, it don't matter if you're in a secular program or you're in a thing, but this one, salvation may be free, but I'm gonna tell you, finding peace on earth, it's got price tag. There's some work that's got to be done. Right. But if you'll abandon yourself to that and that alone, not what you're bringing money. I mean, we try to do that and God's job. You focus over here. He'll fix all that. I mean, look, dude, I wasn't trying to start a construction business. I definitely wasn't trying to be one of the bigger contractors in the country doing true law. That came to me.
So you asked God to lead you, and you took God in, and God led you in the path that you're going, because you basically denied yourself and you give everything.
Well, I one of the most important parts of that is I let somebody else drive the bus for a while.
Gotcha.
If you're that far down, I mean, here's let me put it another way. How are you going to fix something broken with something that's broken?
Gotcha.
Most people out there trying to fix themselves. Father does the work. I think that's another scripture. Father does the work. I had to let somebody else take the reins for a while. And regardless, when you put somebody in a situation, a role like that, I believe God honors that. I don't believe they can put you in the wrong direction.
Right.
Because you're putting your trust in God that this person's going to give you good advice.
Right.
You understand?
Yes.
But I see most people, they just want to go to meetings and not really get too involved. They don't really want to sponsor. I don't know about that. You're going to die.
Right.
And just call it sober right now. I mean, you're going to be that way tomorrow.
Right.
And what difference, because that I think that's progressive, what difference does it make if you're sober now if you're not going to stay that way for the whole time? No. Now the problem is, even though that guy died up on that ridge that day, because I come down off that ridge first.
Right.
How can you be scared of something when you're willing to take it on? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I had to do things different. And I always held back on giving my best effort, my honest, pure-hearted, true walk effort.
Right.
See, because it comes back to the narrow gate.
Right.
It's real narrow.
Right.
Getting, finding freedom from drug addiction and alcoholism and traumas you suffered. And I can show you where the gate is. But it's too narrow for both of us to think through it. You're going to have to walk through it yourself. I lost a friend last week that I tried to help. He wouldn't. He wanted to call and find in the last 2 weeks that I had quit answering the phone because he wanted a suggestion, but he wouldn't take it. Great person. Great man. I love him. I did too. Great man. He's one of the toughest football players.
Oh, I know.
Dude, that's so.
Trust me.
You remember them days you hear when you played Brentwood? Sexy break at you, buddy.
Hey, buddy, I played with the guy. I know. I mean,
Yes, sir.
He was
carried
tough.
the deal off his shoulder.
He was tough, man.
Man, he was such a good guy.
So great guy.
Very intelligent guy, man. He knew his things. I mean, and I love that.
Yeah, too, man. Super good guy.
But if you're not going to take part in your recovery, I'm going to go to the next person who needs my help. And it's painful and it's hard. If you really want to help, for parents, I think one of the hardest things I've had to overcome here, and I'll wrap it up here, is in me trying to help people is their family, mothers, man. Because a mother is designed by God to nurture, love, and friend. But when it comes to addiction, that's the worst thing. If you really want to help an addict or alcoholic, you don't help an addict or alcoholic. That's how you help them. My mother and father fired and quit. I went homeless for about 2 weeks there before I about put my brains out. And I don't believe there's such a thing as loving someone to death, literally. And I really wanted to make my journey easier, but that don't work.
Right.
I've never seen it work. And it's quite the opposite. Well, I mean, I'm going to get him out of jail. No,
That old tough love is what
tough love.
Tough love.
It's love.
It's love, but
But
it's
be
tough.
not deceived. It's the bigger love.
Right.
It is the love.
Right.
Because all you're doing is prolonging their addiction and their death by making it easier. Because they're going to take advantage of it.
And
I didn't know I had a problem as bad as I did. But my folks kept putting the pillow under it.
right.
So I would smack that concrete.
Right.
That, people enable. And, it's like Jesus told the guy at the pool of Siloam, I think it was. He healed that blind man, he told, take up he's a beggar there on the mat and begging, I think that pool of Siloam has some healing power. He rubbed that blood on his eyes, and he told him to take up your mat and walk.
Right.
Don't be a victim for you. Right. Get up, go. And you can't do that for somebody.
You got to be able to do it yourself.
Nobody's coming to save you.
Right.
God will. But I really feel and people may disagree with this, I do believe salvation can kill. You got to heard what I'm talking about. There's some action, and the only person that can take those actions to make yourself get to a better place is you.
Right.
Ain't nobody do this one for you. Right. And, but anyway, man, I'm on.
Kevin, you don't understand.
I probably got a little off track on
No,
something.
but
We covered a lot.
so you don't understand. Like, so you been here. I mean, you're like your brother to me. You know what I mean. I care a lot about you, man. I always have. I know what you're speaking is going to touch someone out there. It's going to, Kevin. There's no way around it. I appreciate the stories that you gave and that your testament, your testimony that you have just give. And if there's anyone out there that is struggling, do not know where to go, do not know what to do, you can always reach out to me. I will attach Kevin. I'm sure he would love to hear from someone. You can private message on Facebook if you want to keep it quiet. You can always reach out to us. If I don't have the answer, if he don't have the answer, we can get you somebody that will have the answer. Is that correct, Kevin?
It is. Now I got news for you. I'm not I'm a flawed man.
Everybody is.
I'm not perfect. Sometimes I'm in disobedience and separated from God. But man, if you're dying and you have no idea, I got some things that may be of use to you.
Right.
If you're desperate and you don't know the way out, man, I'm the guy to give a call because I've been there.
Right.
And I'm not going to come at you from somebody, and I know what it's like to be there. And I'll do whatever can help you. I just require one thing, and that's that you participate as well in my spirit.
So you've heard the story. I know this one has been stretched out, but the story here is I'm hoping everyone made it to this point, because if you did, you heard a lot of things that is going to be helpful to someone out there. And we're with a gentleman right now that is proven that you can come out on the other side. It don't matter if you're 48 years old, if you're 55 or 56, it does not matter. You can come out and you can be a part of society that you've always wanted to be.
Productive member of society.
And that's what it takes. So thank you guys for sticking in there with us. Thank you for the support that you've given us. And thank you for, listening to The True Walk, because as you can see, the reason that this is called The True Walk is because we get the stories of someone's true walk day to day, every day.